Alright, so it's time for another Reading Rush update. Today has been a bit busy with reading, but it's been a good day, and I mean, honestly, any day that you're busy reading is a pretty good day. So, let's get into this. So, first off, what I've been reading today is I've been working on Boy Erased. I seriously thought I could get it done, reading it only at work, but this being Utah, the 24th is actually a holiday. It's Pioneer Day, and I don't have to go into work tomorrow. So I have maybe 30 pages left of Boy Erased. So I didn't quite finish that in time, but I might be able to swing reading it outside or something so that it can still count for the prompt of not reading it in my house. So we'll see if I can find time for that and how that goes. But that's kind of my update on this book. Then next, I've also actually started my book that was the first one that I've touched for the Reading Rush. What that ended up being is The Case of the Spellbound Child by Mercedes Lackey. And I know when I first made my TBR, I said that my plan for the one that was the first book that I touched was that I was just going to have my TBR pile sitting there on the ground right next to me for when I woke up, and it'd just be the first one that I touched would be in my TBR. That did not end up happening. This was stacked in among some other books, and the first day of the Reading Rush, I woke up, I stretched, and I touched this one. So I get to have Mercedes Lackey on my list too. But I'm excited because this is part of her Elemental Masters series, and I love these books. I've read the majority of them. A lot of them are retellings of fairy tales. One was a retelling of Midsummer's Night Dream. This particular one is I'm pretty sure a retelling of a Sherlock Holmes novel. If nothing else, it features an alternate universe Sherlock Holmes, and there's several within this subset of the Elemental Masters series. So I'm excited. I've read the prologue-ish of it so far. It was very intriguing. I'm really curious to see where this one goes. If you're interested in this series, they do basically stand alone. Some of the characters repeat throughout the series, but you can pretty much start anywhere in it, and they're all pretty self-contained since they are just based on retellings of fairy tales and things. So I highly recommend this series if you're looking for a fun fantasy series. The Elemental Masters part of it that it talks about refers to the magic system that's used in this series. There's earth magic, water magic, air magic, and fire magic. And then the people who use those magics are called elemental masters. And there's a little bit more complexity to it than that, but just for a little Reading Rush update, that's probably enough to say about it. But yeah, so I've only read the prologue of this one, so I'm not very far in it, but I'm excited for it because it was a very intriguing prologue. We've got a little ghost running around, and I don't know what's going to happen with him, so I'm very excited. And then the final book that I've got to update you on today is I read A Walk to Remember in its entirety today. This was my one for the prompt of a book that inspired a movie that you've seen. To be fair, I had already read this book as well, but it had been several years, and actually, on reread, I like this book a lot less than I remember liking it. The protagonist, Landon, he kind of is an awful human being for most of the book. He's not racist, because it doesn't really address race at all in this book, but there's a little bit that I would almost call fat phobic, and even the way he describes Jamie, who is his love interest eventually in the story, is pretty awful and hateful through the majority of the book, and it's only 2/3 of the way through that he even realizes that he actually has romantic attraction for Jamie, and I had so many issues with him through the majority of the book. I did, however, mark a spot in the book because I did a little bit of a thesis statement to it. As I said, it didn't really address racism or anything, but the book does take place in North Carolina, so it does address a little bit of issues of life in the South and stuff, and in particular, Landon's family comes from big landowners and stuff, and his grandpa is like this big guy who kind of stole basically property and stuff from a lot of people, promising them that he'd give it back during like the Great Depression and things when things were awful, but then never actually giving it back. So there ended up being a conversation between Landon and Jamie where she was talking to him about his inheritance from his grandpa. And Landon's like, why do you do things like this? Make me feel guilty, I mean. I wasn't the one who did it. I just happened to be born into this family. She reached out and touched a branch. They're in a garden, by the way. That doesn't mean you can't undo it, she said gently, when you get the opportunity. And I thought that was a really nice thesis statement. Like, it doesn't address all the issues that go on in the South or anything, but I do like that thought that, yeah, you maybe didn't do the things, but you do have this legacy that you can choose how you either like live up to that legacy or how you can undo some of those legacies and stuff. And I liked that a lot. But yeah, turns out I don't like this book as much as I used to. The ending ends up feeling kind of rushed because, as I said, his feelings for Jamie are very, very critical through the majority of the book. And by the time he actually starts having positive feelings for her, it felt very much like a switch is flipped. And that's kind of how he describes the feelings and stuff too. But from like a writing perspective, especially as someone who is working on writing her own stories and trying to make things feel realistic and natural, it felt very unnatural to me. And I was like, I don't like this quick switch that he's suddenly gone through. And I don't think this is a very accurate romance anymore. To be fair, that last like third of the book where it's like actually romance and he's actually nice to her, I do still enjoy a lot. But the bits leading up to it, which is the majority of the book, I do like a lot less than I used to. So I'm debating if I even want to keep this book anymore. So it brought up some interesting feelings to be here. But that does make it 4 for 4 so far for the reading rush. So that's really fun. So yeah, I'll see about trying to read the last few pages of this outside within the next few days, which, I mean, it's only like 30 pages, so it shouldn't be that bad to read outside. But I'm really frustrated that I wasn't able to finish it at work. And then, obviously, I'll be reading this one as well, because this was the first book that I touched, so if I'm trying to finish all the prompts for the reading rush, I need to read this one as well. But yeah. Just kind of a fun little update. I hope you guys are enjoying your reading rush. Let me know what you're reading, if you're having fun with what you're reading, all that kind of stuff down below. Yeah, I think that's all I've got for now. This is the Umlaut Harper signing out.